Now the question is, who shall we send against Scarlett? Newly crowned queen. Obviously requires a challenge. But who does she never, ever, ever get to play against? Well, I can think of someone that almost nobody ever gets to play against. Someone who... Well, he's a bit of a legend, honestly. He's not that active anymore, but he is the brains behind a very strong South Korean team. He was a bit of a big deal in Brood War. Maybe you've heard of him. Samsung Galaxy Khan, Stalk.
All right, you know, you're giving me the flashbacks already to last week. I'm thinking about the last epic ZVP that we saw Scarlett play in ShoutCraft Kings, and it was on Apotheosis. I think it was Scarlett. Maybe I'm mistaking her with Stefano against CJ Hero.
It was Stefano.
Okay. So we've had some good ZVP then, I'll just say, as far as the foreigners go against the Koreans. Well, this seems like it's going to be a hell of a match.
He was nicknamed the Dinosaur, or Dinotos. He is, of course, old school Brood War. Now, a legend in the Brood War scene, and has been performing the role of captain for Samsung Galaxy Khan for quite some time now. Scarlett is asking Stalk if he's a Neeb fan. Stalk doesn't seem to know. Oh dear. It's like, yeah, you get to play against Stalk for the first time, and the first thing you ask is like, are you a fan of Neeb? Yeah,
it's like, you know what, I got invited to like an all-inclusive party, you know, I got flown out, got to hang out with like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Orlando Bloom, and my first question was, you guys Neeb fans? Do you guys like Neeb?
Dear God. Alright, well this will be an interesting challenge for Scarlett. I don't know if she's ever got to play against Stalk before.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this matchup.
No, perhaps not. I mean, he was the man in Brood War. I mean, this is a legend, you know, bourgeois level player. He hasn't made a big impact in StarCraft 2, but he's also one of the few guys who moved over, one of the old school guys who's still around. You know, we see people like Flash and C have moved, and Bisu have moved back to Brood War. Stalk has stuck around.
It's been interesting to follow that, of course, as just what seems to have been described to me, at least, as a resurgence of Brood War recently. A lot more tournament support,
yes.
And then, of course, all of the rumors floating around about things and other things and whatnot.
Yeah, that is true. You know, the Korean scene is an interesting one right now. It's in a very curious state in which Brood War has certainly had a resurgence. You know, leagues are happening again. The popularity of Brood War streams in Korea is very high.
Those are doing insanely well. I think like the numbers that came out for them for like a month or two ago are actually ridiculous with like the support that those players have been getting. So pretty crazy to see. Really fast probe going out here, and there's the gate. So Stork just wants to be aware of what is going on.
This is going to be an interesting game one way or the other. You know, again, we don't see Stalk actively playing a huge number of games or anything along those lines, but we do see that he still actively plays, and he is the brains behind the operation. And you don't need to necessarily be the fastest, you don't need to have the most mechanical skill if you have that level of intelligence and game sense that someone as legendary as Stalk would have.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just comes down to like, you know, Scarlett, of course, we talk about someone who plays very actively, practicing a lot, working extremely hard to become the best player that she can be. And I don't know enough about Stork to be able to say whether it's the same exact thing, you know? You know, the other guy, you know, the guy's got a life, I assume, right? He's been a legend for a long time. I can't imagine that the focus of his life is just grinding SC2 ladder games all day long to become the greatest player in the world again, you know what I mean?
But he has such a huge, you know, component of what he's doing right now in his career as a coaching role, you know, with Samsung.
That's true.
And that means
he's still very much up to date.
Yeah, I mean, there probably is nobody as up to date as him. You know, he knows so much already, and he teaches so much. And here's what's interesting. You know, we're seeing a cannon, and we're seeing absolutely no response at all out of Scarlett. Not in the slightest. Now, is that on purpose, or did she genuinely get caught off guard here?
I feel like if she had tried to preemptively transfer drones, she might have been able to cancel the first one and then try to use links, similar to what True did against MC, but I think not having drones moved early enough to that base makes it tricky.
Yeah, I mean, this again was very similar to what MC attempted, but this time it might actually be working. This base, acquiring this gold base early on is a huge advantage. There's now 2 cannons up.
It's interesting that we don't really ever see the cannon plays in Legacy of the Void, but this map has already twice today brought it out in such a fashion as that the Protoss really do not want to let the Zerg players just
have a gold.
Get up to this gold with impunity.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's one of the closest, most accessible gold bases that I think I've ever seen on a ladder map. It's so easy to grab it quickly. There's absolutely no way you'd want your opponent to have it, and yet there's not even a big risk, it seems, of even taking it.
Yep. So that spine crawler is still going to be able to finish. The lack of creep spread kind of makes it weird because it's going to slowly bleed out, but
is it going to be forced to stand up?
I think it should be able. It'll kill the pylon first. It'll kill the pylon first. It's not forced to stand up. Right. It just bleed out like any other.
It's just very rare that you see this situation. Like, how does it work that way? How this? But there's another pylon up though, and now there's no creep to actually eliminate that. That's amusing. This is it's quite cool that Stalk managed to get another pylon in there just before he left, realizing what was going to happen. This is weird. This is really weird.
Yeah, it's a weird scenario where having like a queen out earlier just for a tumor so that the spine could be repositioned would have been really nice, because obviously you can't really do a whole lot while it's there. It's actually still just sitting there bleeding out because he's focusing on these lings. Or excuse me, she's focusing on these lings in the main base. Kills 4 probes.
I mean, you can't really complain about that. And the adept eventually gets it cleaned up, but even getting past there in the first place, it always got to remember about that early drop overlord. Doesn't matter if it's slow, it can still do the job. All it needs to do is move a couple of inches over the cliff face, and that is about it. So, decent amount of damage done there. That's always nice. Scarlett does have the drone lead here, despite losing that base. I mean, it's a costly loss, but you got to bear in mind Stalk's investment to make it happen, too.
Yep, so let's see. +1 melee. So we're going to see Scarlett do the Ling sort of thing, right? So this is coming a little bit back towards what we saw out of True, which honestly worked really well. Being able to get Lings on top of the opponent's army is such a big thing for ZVP, and Scarlett has always been a big fan of heavy Ling play in every matchup, but particularly PvZ, where we've seen it just be devastating because Adepts are strong with Resonating Glaives. They're extremely terrifying to deal with, and you know, probably one of the most complained about units in Legacy of the Void. But if you get those upgraded Lings on them, they can do a lot. But that weakened Spine Crawler, just from bleeding out, might actually get picked off here.
Yeah, it will. And that's a nice little pick off, you know, committing over, only losing a single adept, and then backing off to where the photon cannons are. Really smart move, knowing it's like, hey, I actually have a little safe haven, a little fire base right next to your natural expansion. That's now being blocked off, of course, by the rocks. Scarlett realizing, yeah, that's a staging area. And yes, warp-ins are really damn slow now, but you could still do them.
Now, if there's no warp gate, warp-in takes, like, what is it, 11 seconds real time, I think is what it's set to.
But he warps in a Stalker, and now he's going to kill that Overlord, and the Lings can't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah. He's had to go all the way around the left side, and those Adepts are there, so denying the potential ability to scout. Oh my god, that Overlord flying into cannons. No,
it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's okay there. It's all right there. Oh, and I think those Stalker's going to lose those Adepts. That was a little bit impetuous there by the Protoss Dragon.
That was precisely not where you wanted to be. He's going to try to use the Corrosive Bile now.
It's not enough. Scarlett doesn't have enough corrosive bile to actually bring those down, at least not for a while anyway, and she gets close and they're firing over the cliff face. Dislodging this has been a nightmare for Scarlett.
What's interesting to me is that after the way that all of this started up, Stork still finds himself locked to 2 bases.
Yes,
He's got Resonating Glaives, but just starting a Dark Shrine in a robotics facility. But it seems like he's having a lot of trouble finding a way to actually get out of his base. So I'm not entirely sure what he's going to do to break free and move forward here. He's going to break the rock, so I guess no gold base for him.
Yeah, doesn't seem to have any intention of taking that. He'll probably want to take the 3rd up to the northeast position there. But he does have the Dark Shrine on the way. That 3rd base is now actually the 4th for Scarlett being established. But yeah, where does Stalk go from there? You know, he's playing with a relatively small army. He's playing a very tech-heavy style. and hoping not to get completely overwhelmed. He has a good defensive position on the natural, but once that large army of Roach Ravagers starts to descend on the third base, will he have what he needs to stop it?
And I think that's going to be a really important question, because if we think about, you know, what happened to MC and whatnot, he was in a very similar position with the extremely late third, although it was for different reasons. Obviously, the third base got sniped while the drop hit the main base, but Warp Prism and the Dark Shrine, always an interesting combination, as the ability to pick up those DTs from a distance is always useful. And the Overseer that's with the army kind of gives you that level of comfort where you start to realize, oh yeah, I've got detection. But then on the other hand, you actually don't have any static defense. There's no spores in any of the bases. So those have the potential, if the army is out on the map, to get backstabbed by Dark Templar. That's something that's going to be extremely important to keep our eyes on, since, you know, if you hit from one DT on the right and one on the left, and you only have one Overseer, you cannot possibly deal with both.
Yeah, that is very true. I am worried about the runaway nature of Scarlett's economy right now. Having now established that gold, we're going to have to see some serious damage coming in from the Protoss harassment.
Yeah, that income tab is scary,
It's
TotalBiscuit.
getting a little bit ridiculous. I mean, it's about to peak over 3,000 minerals a minute. That's a huge amount. DTs have now been warped in. The Warp Prism is in action. It's spotted now a 5th base. It's actually more units being warped in, more DTs, more Zealots, as the army for the Zerg is actually moving across the map to attempt to attack this 3rd base, which right now is completely undefended.
Yep, so we get DT to the gold base, 2 Zealots to the building 5th base.
Oh my,
and
it's all over the
3
place.
DTs into the main. That Spine Crawler will get taken down very quickly. Could go straight for the Queens,
my
and a
God.
big warping of Zealots to help bolster this. There's no Carapace upgrades. It means the Zealots can actually fight very well against the Lings head-to-head.
This was quite the gambit here from Stalk, and it was a good one, and he's trying to focus down. I don't think he's going to get the lair, but he was able to bring his opponent all the way across the map, and then just attack when the entire Zerg army was out of position. Took the 5th out in the process, by the way, and basically almost no losses for the Protoss player. That was a very efficient attack.
Yeah, I mean, Scarlett's got some Mutalisks on the way, so, I mean, just 2 kind of says to me anti-Prism.
Yeah.
Even then, it's not ideal. Okay, 3 more.
Takes a while.
So, maybe she's going to pocket them. I'm kind of curious, where are the Mutas going? Yeah, pocket them in the main base and just chill and wait for an opportunity to jump on your opponent. I mean, we don't have a Stargate on the map, right? That's always going to be the most crucial thing for dealing with this.
Look at the huge DT warp in. 4 more DTs were being added in there. Actually, he's morphing Archons now, which against this heavy Link style is ideal.
Yeah, Archons are great against Zerglings, so I do like this. I mean, fighting without charge always feels weird to me. Like, the Zealots have the upgrades that we'd always talk about in Heart of the Swarm. It's like, yeah, Zealots with attack upgrades, 2-shot Lings, but... Okay, there we go. Charge just now starting.
Stalk moving across the map. I'm not 100% keen on that. There's definitely a big army supply difference, but, I mean, it's almost all in Zerglings. If you can get maybe a few more Archons into the mix and get some great AoE shots, that Zergling count will melt.
Yep, and I think the Tempa Archives is ready, so can use that to get up Archons. But we do have Mutas hitting the 3rd base while this big fight is about to take place, and the Lings are going to come in.
Oh god, I mean, those Lings are going to get absolutely destroyed. The force fields go down, but big shots coming in from the Ravagers. The Ravager count suddenly got absolutely ridiculous. The Banelings are able to make their way over. The Warpin comes in. We're seeing Zealots come down. However, the Banelings immediately connect with them as soon as they warp in. And Scarlett overruns the Protoss army in the process.
Well, that was brutal. 3 Zealots
really
going over towards the 5th base, but Scarlett absolutely shreked that army of Stork.
He really did. She ran it over completely, and it's like, all right, I've got force fields, I've got Archons, I'm ready to go. I was like, oh, there's just too much stuff. Like, remember, the Ravager exists, and force fields don't last for very long these days.
Yeah, so these Lings are going to go to the right side. I like this little wall off by Stork. He's going to try to buy himself some time, but...
He's going to need it.
Going to need a lot more time than what he's got, and I love that these Mutalisks... It's like a Terran drop style, you know? It's not Doom drop. It's just, okay, I've got 5-6 Mutas that are just going to be really annoying, and you have to have a dedicated response to these. You can't just warp in a few Zealots or Adepts. Stalkers are actually not as strong either. And at the same time, the big army comes in. Banelings get some solid detonations. These zealots do finally have charge, but I think we're going a little bit too late.
Too late, yeah. No storm available. The Archons are finally going to fall. They're just being killed by Banelings at this point. There's just so many of them, and Stalk's army is completely overwhelmed at this point. The 4th base is going to be destroyed by the looks of it, and I don't think there's anything else, and neither does he. GG, and Scarlett takes another win.
Scarlett kicking some ass here. Really, really well played, well set up. And we talked about it, man. Those Lings can really get a lot of work done, but that fight in the middle is just so awkward. You know, you kind of mentioned this, right? Obviously, Scarlett has that tremendous amount of supply. She has a huge number of Ravagers. But then you look at it, it's like, okay, well, Stork is only at 150 supply. He doesn't have charge. These are extremely important things. Like, obviously, you want to have a maxed out army, but not having charge is just like, when you have so many Zealots in your forces, like, they don't really contribute anything. They die to Ravager shots before they even reach them.
Yeah, that's true. And we saw some really cool, tricky play there from Stalk. You know, we definitely saw some of his legendary creativity on display. Unfortunately, it just was not quite enough. If he was able to maybe expand a little earlier and get his resource up and actually compete army supply size-wise with Scarlett, I think he would have had a much better shot. Yeah,
I mean, it's always difficult to do, though. Because, I mean, obviously in that situation, he committed a lot to the early aggression, which delays the 3rd base, and then Scarlett seemed to have a reasonable idea of how to manage that, but pretty well put together, very methodical, and that cannon rush definitely could have made things very awkward. I will say Stork's opening, it seemed cool, but the 3rd base being slowed down, and maybe that's just because of the 4 or 5 probes that he lost, to be honest. Like, even that could have just thrown off the tempo of his opening so much. Maybe he's comfortable with how that goes as he doesn't take those 4 probes that he got picked off.
Yeah, it could have been. It very well could have been. It was cool to see him play, though. I really enjoyed his creativity there. There was some really cool moves going on. Not enough to take out Scarlett, unfortunately. So we'll see who can manage that one next. In fact, we have found her next challenger. I just want to make sure he's actually here, because he's showing us a way, and I don't like it when he does that.
Not good. Need people here for them to be able to play?
It does help, yes, it does help. It's like, be here at a certain time. It's like, I'm not here. It's like, god damn it. We try to minimize downtime as much as we can in this tournament, but it is what it is. If we don't have the player available, then we do have to kind of wait for them to come back. If he doesn't show up in the next minute or so, I'll find somebody else, but I think this would be a fairly good challenge.
And I like that we get to see Scarlett having a good bit of success here, taking out Bjorn and then Stork. And that's one of the cool things about this tournament is you just get the volatility. You just really just have to play your A game, you know, one player at a time, just knocking them down. And it's so cool to be able to see that, and really impressed with the performance that Scarlett has put up so far. It's pretty awesome.
Indeed. We're going to have to take a quick break while we wait to get our next player into the mix. However, we'll be right back as quickly as we can be with yet more ShoutCraft Kings. Do not go anywhere. Scarlett's reign is currently at 2 maps, $500. Let's see if she can extend it any further and indeed tie Innovation's reign today of 3 games. We'll find out after the break. Don't go anywhere. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft Kings. We apologize for the delay. We're going to be going right into this game. We have a new challenger for Scarlett. One Protoss obviously didn't do the job, but a second one might.
Keep throwing them at him.
Just pretty much. Keep throwing them at Scarlett and see what happens. We will certainly be finding out momentarily. Next challenger, again. They should both be very, very familiar with each other. They have faced each other on a great many occasions. Both being considered extremely strong in the NA scene. She'll be facing off against Puck.
All right. Well, this is actually kind of scary for me to think about, to be honest. Puck actually had a pretty rough match against Scarlett at Montreal. I think it was one of the shortest series of the entire tournament. Got 3 owed. So this is more like a redemption match than anything else, I would say, as far as Puck versus Scarlett goes. But I would definitely have to give the edge to Scarlett here. Puck's been talking a bit lately about how he's been struggling with PVZ, so maybe he's going to try something different this game. Maybe it's going to be a surprise for us and himself, but he certainly got his work cut out for him.
All right. Well, we're ready to rock and roll, so let's get going. Scarlett versus Puck on New Gettysburg.
I do expect Scarlett to play that style where she's kind of all over the place. I think Puck has, he's always had a tendency to favor Stalkers more than Adepts in general in StarCraft 2. Obviously, there were no Adepts in Heart of the Swarm. He was very big on Stalkers then. He still kind of sticks to them, but they're just not as strong in this meta. Stalkers just don't compete as well against what's become the standard for Zerg.
Yep, that is very true. To the southeast position in the Blue Trunks, playing Protoss, ladies and gentlemen, it is a Root Puck. Versus his opponent to the southwest position. Obviously a lot of tension here since she is a fan of a different Protoss from North America. That's the story of this matchup. That's about as best I can do. In the Pink Trunks, playing Zerg. Currently 2 wins into a streak as Queen of the Hill. It is Scarlett.
All right, so Scarlett with the quick hatch. Puck going for a quick probe scout. I guess he wants to make sure that nothing crazy is happening, as I think at least one of the games that he played against Scarlett, he did have to deal with some pretty profound cheddar. But I mean, Scarlett definitely comes into this with the advantage. She knows that she has had a very good record against Puck lately, and Puck has also been trounced by Zergs pretty badly lately. I think in Montreal, it was Scarlett that knocked him out in the first round of the tournament, and then in Shanghai, I think it was a laser that completely obliterated Puck as well. So he has not had the best of time versus Zerg. Maybe we'll see something really different, crazy. That's what I'm hoping for, at least in this scenario.
He might need it, as you said.
Yeah.
He was considered for a long time to be very promising North American Protoss player. One of the best, easily. You know, he competed in Shoutcraft America, as I recall. He did a great job there, but hasn't really been showing too much lately in terms of his results.
No, it's interesting because most of Puck's climb happened during Heart of the Swarm. You could say Scarlett started to come up towards the end of Wings of Liberty. Puck had some really good success playing in WCS. It's actually weird for me because his best matchup in Heart of the Swarm was definitely Protoss versus Zerg. Like, he played the MC style of Mass Blink Stalkers insanely well. And he's basically, his kryptonite has been Zerg players that recognize that he plays heavy Stalkers and just go for Lurkers, because he doesn't play around with the crazy Adept builds. Doesn't seem to have as good of a preparation for the late game styles. His builds can work in the early game, but based on his record against Scarlett lately, that doesn't seem to give him enough of an advantage in this head-to-head at least.
No, I wouldn't say so. It's entirely possible that Scarlett is favored in this matchup. We're seeing it's early Robo. Unfortunately, it does get scouted there by Scarlett.
So maybe this is going to be just a quick Prism with some quick harass with some sort of follow-up in an aggressive manner. But, I mean, if you're still chronoing out probes, okay, there's the Prism. Like, I'm just not 100% sure because he hasn't taken the gases on his natural, which says you're either saving up your minerals for more gateways to do a bigger attack, or you're saving up your minerals to go for a third base. So maybe he wants to take a third while he moves out with the Prism. It's hard to be certain, but we'll have to see, I guess. If he, by the time this Prism comes out, he could have already had a few more gates on the way. So
yeah,
I'm feeling an expansion.
Yeah, it's kind of got to be. The question is, does he have the number of units to secure that? He does. There's only 4 lings out on the map. Wait a second. Double Stargate behind that? All right. That was not...
no, he's not harassing. He is taking his third TotalBiscuit. It's just
It's
not the normal third.
He's taking the island, using his warp prism to do it, and then he's going for Sky Toss. Yeah, that is...
You know what?
I forgot there was even an expansion there, honestly.
In a best of one, in a matchup that he's not performing well in, against a player that he's not particularly favored or strong against, this actually just makes it a ton of sense. As weird as it is, it's probably the best move he could make.
Yeah,
Something completely bonkers, off the wall mad.
Absolutely right. It may get scouted, it may not. I'm looking at the Overlord path. It is absolutely going to get scouted. But the question is, what do you then do? It's like, oh, great, I know it's there, now what? Now, I guess maybe you go for a drop-heavy style, but with the double Stargate, you could see a ton of Phoenixes coming out, making Overlord drop styles very difficult to pull off. You can see Void Rays coming out. It's going to get interesting one way or the other. Scarlett has now seen the pylon, so I think she can already assume what's up here.
Look at this 5 drop Overlords being made.
Oh my god.
That seems a bit overkill, but she just wants to
She wants to kill that before anything can happen, right?
Yeah, she does not want to give Puck time to set that up. And, I mean, Puck has those couple of Oracles, and those Oracles actually, you know, they could defend this to some degree, but 5 Overlords, well, 4 full Overlords at least worth of Lings is going to be extremely tough to handle. And this Prism is bringing probes over here. That's a lot that Puck could lose right now.
The problem is the Oracles are now, they're in the mineral line doing significant damage, but they're not there to defend this base. So this Overlord drop should wipe this out, really. There's so many Lings, even if the Warp Prism tried to respond with Warp-ins, I don't know if it would be enough. We've got a couple of Adepts being warped in, but that's not enough. It's evacuation time, I think, here for Puck.
Yep. I think it's time to get rid of the probes, save what you can. Oh no, the wall is not complete. The Stalker not able to block.
Wah, wah, wah. Well, that did not go well. Not at all. It was an interesting idea. I was hoping that it would, but she's too savvy for that. She spotted it almost immediately, and that's got to go hidden for a couple of minutes. Like, you gotta get your Air Force up and start to really push the Overlords back and take map control and take control of the air. She scouted it too fast, and that was that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, to say the least. I have no words for that.
I mean, Scarlett, no, there isn't really much to say.
Everybody opens an Overlord speed to scout, so that made things frustrating.
I mean, I just see that base taken so infrequently. I guess the hope of Puck was she's never gonna check there, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in a weird sort of way, it just comes down to the fact that if those Oracles, like, imagine that Puck has some idea of what's going on, or like he sees the Overlords in some way. If those Oracles come back, like 2 Oracles,
he can defend. Yes, he can hold it.
They can kill most of the Lings on the island. But I would still say that it would end up being an issue is that the wall wasn't whole.
Well,
so even with the Stalker on hold position, it wasn't enough. So like Scarlett still should have gotten some counterattack damage done, but maybe it wouldn't have been game ending.
Yeah. You're absolutely right there. As soon as she realized that wall was almost like, all right, go. Just kill him. Just kill him. Oh, dear. Well, that was short and to the point. Nice, easiest $250 that Scarlett's ever won, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's definitely getting a little bit lopsided now. Scarlett's starting to pick up a good round of wins, so getting a bit of a streak going. Feels good, man.
It does. It absolutely does. All right, our next opponents, yeah. This is going to be a little bit trickier. I do love to watch Scarlett versus Terran, I have to say. That's always produced the most entertaining games for me.
So I always love seeing Scarlett play. She has good ways to respond to the weird stuff that people do as well. Like that island base, for example. So I could watch Scarlett play all day. She's gonna keep winning. Works for me.
Well, we'll see, because the next opponent is no pushover, no doubt about that. Making his return to ShoutCraft Kings. I wanted a good Terran. I always see entertaining matchups with Scarlett and great Terrans, especially Korean Terrans. So as a result, I brought back Gumiho.
Good opportunity to redeem himself. His match last month was he flopped pretty hard.
He
Nurcio
did.
absolutely top decked and wrecked him. He went for that mech build on Apotheosis and he got thrashed. I'd say that did not do justice to the Gumiho that I know, and maybe it's because he went for the weird build, but I'm certainly expecting him to bring something a little bit different out. I don't expect the same results. I'm excited to see him though. Gumiho's one of my absolute favorite Terran players. If you're someone that doesn't watch StarCraft a crazy amount, Gumiho's basically like, he's that guy that can do the normal stuff, but he has like a weird twist on things, but not weird in the sense that he'll go like 3-Rax Reaper, but weird like, you know, he's the kind of guy that could go for a Blue Flame Hellion build against True, for example, when most people wouldn't really do that sort of thing, but it doesn't mean he has to go mech. So he's got an insane amount of range, and he's what I would call an innovator. He's certainly an awesome, fun player to watch, and great player to try to learn from as far as getting an idea of kind of how different units can be used in ways that you may not have otherwise thought about.
Yeah, I mean, you just described the Towel Terran in a nutshell, really, across his entire career. That's exactly what he did over and over and over again, to mixed success. You know, Gumiho has not had a huge title run at any point, but he's always been considered good.
That's the thing. He's always been like a somewhat solid player. He's always been like a safe pick, you know? Not the guy that's going to win the championship, but he's the guy that you're like, okay, well, we need somebody that can kind of do a weirdish strategy. Gumiho is your guy. Like, he's the person that I think back in like kind of builds that I've always liked that he was sort of known for. He was definitely one of the players that would bust out the more slower mech against Zerg in Heart of the Swarm when there were opportunities to do so. He had some very cheeky builds.
He did, yeah.
And he's just always been super cool. Even when it's not something like, you know, full crazy like mech, he'll just have different openings that you don't expect. Like maybe he'll open with a quick cyclone and a drop. Like you can't really be sure what he's going to do. And I think that just also makes him a little bit more of a threat in a different way.
That is true. We're just trying to get the French casters in at the moment. They're having a couple of issues being invited, a couple of BattleNet issues here and there. Gumiho, of course, a very scrappy player on online tournaments, frequent participator in Oli Mo League. Weirdly enough, got recently beaten multiple times by Neeb, actually, within the last few days. Lost 2-0 to Neeb in Oli Mo League 68. And lost again in Shangangling 3, also to Neeb. So, seems to be a little bit of a nemesis going on right there with Gumiho.
Yeah, I think Scarlett presents an interesting sort of thing, because this kind of turns to me as Gumiho should definitely be the more slow down paced player in a match like this. It is on Frozen Temple, so this is, I think, I love this map. This map gives a lot of range. I honestly thought that some Terran players wouldn't like it as much just because of how open that outside area by the natural third is, but the size also makes pushing pretty doable, you know, as compared to a map like Apotheosis where you just have to go so far across. So if I was gonna, you know, try to put up the title card for this match, it's gonna be Gumiho. Whatever he decides to go for is gonna be slowly slugging it out. Scarlett's going to be taking her shots at him, but it's going to come down to whether I think Gumiho can weather the storm, and maybe he gets one or two cheeky punches in that are going to be not what Scarlett would expect.
Well, let's see what happens. Gumiho, of course, is going up against the leader of the Neeb fan club. There might be some tension there, considering how often Gumiho has lost lately. Can't be too happy, but Gumiho's recent success against Zerg has definitely been there. You know, he's been beating quite a few Zerg players as of late in online events, and he plays so much. There's a lot of data on him. There's a lot of good results from him, but nothing breakthrough, nothing
I think the
significant.
Form. I think the form is going to be extremely important because Terrans across the board have been doing very well against Zerg for the last like 2 or 3 months. So it's hard to say 100%. Like if he's on point, then then I think this should be a really good match. But Scarlett has already shown so far today that she's playing exceptionally well, taking out already a few Korean players.
Yeah, she is looking like she's got great form going on at the moment, and Gumiho has not been in dominant form. Good form, decent form, no doubt, but not I am killing everybody. I mean, you know, he's dropping maps to foreign players, he's dropping maps to Zerg. He actually lost very recently, within the last few days, a 2-1 series to Violet. So he's not looking massively strong in this matchup right now, but you never know with him. You know, I think Gumiho's problem may be one of consistency.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting kind of way to look at it. He doesn't have what I would call like the thing that what really sets. What do people notice when they look at a Terran, right? It's always going to be the big epic playmaking abilities. You look at someone like Maru, you're like, oh my god, his splits are insane. Or innovation, even weirdly enough, we talk about, it's like, okay, well, his macro is just disgusting. He runs train on you. Gumiho's not that guy. He's not the guy that we remember for being the parade pusher. He's not the guy that we remember for having the greatest splits in the entire world. He's the guy that did a weird building armor bunker rush with siege tanks off of one base or something like that sort. And it's like
he's a guy that played mech when it wasn't appropriate to play mech, you know, when it wasn't socially acceptable to play mech. He was one of the true mech innovators, you know.
He's a pioneer.
Give mech a chance, you know, and he did. He gave it a chance. I don't know if his opponents did, but
he's just a guy that he is a pioneer, not a playmaker, is how I would describe Gumiho.
And that's always fun to watch, to me. You know, that's the kind of guy that you want in a tournament like this, because he can pull an upset and he can pull it in a stylish way, or he can crash and burn in a very entertaining way.
Yeah, I mean, already, like, he's not even going to build his infrastructure at the normal place where you'd build a wall. Like, already, he's just like, yeah, I play a little bit differently. I'm not super concerned about this. Reaper into the quick factory, reactor follow-up with this command center. So very standard as far as the setup. But the quick second gas and this reactor, barracks, like I'm already feeling something like Cloaked Banshees out of him. Like this setup is just ripe for that. So Hellion into either Banshee. The positioning of the barracks is why I would say probably build a tech lab instead of going for Marines like Beyond did earlier. And this is already a build that we have not seen any other Terran players go for today. Like Gumiho just, he kind of goes his own way.
That he does. And we'll see whether or not that takes him to victory or defeat. One way or the other, it will certainly be aggressive. Gumiho has not been known for sitting around in his base doing nothing. We see double Hellion now immediately into double Widowmine into a tech-labbed starport, which then builds a medevac, because of course it does.
Okay, well that still confuses
Cloaked medevac,
me.
of course. No, he's going Banshee. No, he isn't.
Right.
No, he's going medevac. No.
You know, do you think he's like faking us out or something?
I think that's exactly. Well, I mean,
but he wants to do a mind drop and follow it up with Cloaked Banshees.
Well, here's the thing.
Fine.
If this gets scouted by the Zerg, she's gonna have no idea what's going on.
I guess that's true. That's true. If you don't know what you're doing, surely your opponent can't know what you're doing.
Exactly. If you don't have a plan in the first place, your opponent can't counter that plan.
All right, so this is kind of what I was talking about. A pioneer. This isn't some crazy weird build where he's going to do sick micro. Maybe we do see that. Focus fire with Widow Mines can always be big. If a juicy Hellion lineup shot can be big. But this is more about doing something that's a little off the cuff. Not something that Scarlett's going to be like, oh yeah, everybody does the 4 Hellion Reaper poke while dropping 2 mines in the back, followed up into Marine Tank Banshee.
Cloaked Banshee, of course, yeah, absolutely. What else would you do?
The nice thing about this is that a Banshee tank follow-up is going to be insanely powerful versus a Roach counter, which Scarlett's moving into. But Ling's somehow getting inside of the natural.
Wait, that was a huge... I saw a huge hit just come here. Yeah, the Widowmine's killed
11
drones. Which, you know, would have been even better if he'd actually lost 0 there. But, I mean, that mine drop was super effective.
Mine drop does a lot of damage. The mines are still there, by the way. There's no detection whatsoever. At the same time, the medevac has the Hellions dancing around the main base.
Oh, look at this. A blind shot takes out the Widowmine using the Ravager Bile. There's still one left, but what a perfect little maneuver there by Scarlett to bring that down.
Yeah, that Widowmine fired one more time. It was able to kill another drone. Oh, he throws the Bile but misses. That's not where the mine was. And the Banshee shows up now with Cloak.
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, detection is certainly going to be required one way or the other, but the amount of drones that should get killed by this should be more than enough to pay for what's going on. The mine's still there. It's going to fire again. Oh, no, she's pulling away, possibly in the worst possible moment. Huge hit. 14 workers are down, 15 in this. What the hell is this push?
And this is what I'm talking about, man. Gumiho throws something out of left field, and Scarlett's just like, what the hell is even happening right now? What is this game?
This is what an insane amount of damage done so early. A second Banshee added into the mix now. You can't
counterattack against this. You're on hatch tech. The Banshee can shoot the Ravagers. It can shoot the Roaches. This Banshee from Gumiho sees the Roaches and the Ravagers like, okay, well, now you have to go home because the Banshee will kill half the units before you actually do anything.
Scarlett. Very nice, to save that Roach there. But the economic damage is what I'm looking at right now. The amount of workers killed. I mean, that initial mine drop was super effective. The fact that it got to shoot multiple times, and she mistimed pulling the drones away. I think she thought she had a couple more seconds before that mine went off, and it crippled her mineral line.
Absolutely sick. I mean, Gumiho, the follow-up, beautiful. Gets the third command center, then starts the 1-1, like, third basin upgrade, super important. And he's going bio, Gumiho doesn't always do the crazy, play styles, but he will open in very different ways and have different builds that are very, very good. Banshees just give you so much map presence against a Zerg that doesn't have mutas out. And with how late this lair is, well, it's a superb choice in my honest opinion. And now we have 2 tanks to follow us up with Hellions and Marines. The 4th base. Well, at least this area under a lot of pressure.
Are there any units that Gumiho does not currently own at this point is the question on my mind. And these Banshees have been just unbelievably useful. It's an 11-kill Banshee right there. Saved them and made sure not to waste them either. And now, of course, siege tanks in position with the rocks at full strength.
Oh, good.
Meaning flanking is very difficult to do, even with Scarlet level creep spread.
Yep, this is beautiful. I mean, we have 1-1 on the way for Scarlett now, but 1-1's about to finish for Gumiho. He's going to have his armory done in time for it as well, so he's ready to keep moving forward. Siege Tank's going to barely get saved. Great medevac pickup.
Going so quick. In the meantime, Scarlett's going to take a lot of shots on those Queens. The Queens can handle that, and that's managed to push that aggression back. And in the meantime, she has got her economy back in working order. I am concerned a little bit about falling behind in terms of tech, certainly. But she's not in a bad position now. No,
it's still recovery mode for her, right? Like, she's had to build up the drones. She's managed to do that. She managed to get up to her setup that has given her enough workers and the upgrades to kind of progress forward. So she's a little bit behind in upgrades, but moving into infestors, that's always been, an ace in the hole for Zerg players. You get 1 or 2 good fungals, you wombo combo that with the corrosive bile, and everything can go bad. But these Hellions, they just slip into the natural somehow.
Oh, good lord. I mean, Gumiho has done an amazing job of finding weaknesses. I mean, that's 10 workers going down. What a beautiful trade. 11.
That's not insignificant. Like,
no, it's
Hellions they just ran in like no one was like, where's the bouncer, man?
That happened considering the crease, but I think Sasha's getting flustered at this point. I think that's only the opening was so bizarre that the game has ended up in a position that Scarlett's not comfortable with, and Scarlett's now making mistakes. When Scarlett's comfortable, she is just flawless in her play. She sees everything coming thanks to a great creep spread, but now she's a bit shaky.
And I will say this, for all the workers that she's lost, boy, has she maintained an impressive drone count.
Oh, yes.
The Hive is about to finish. I'm going to say things that do still concern me. Gumiho is going to have one big window to attack before we have fully upgraded Ultralisks, because as long as Gumiho has 1 level of upgrade lead, he can kill Ultras with this army. Whether or not Scarlett wants to go for Ultras is a completely different sort of question, because it looks like it's just Roach, Ravager, and Fester. But either way, great catch in that medevac.
Yeah, it was lovely. Great combo, the fungal with the acidic pile follow-up to bring it down. Gumiho's army is, for the most part, pulling back, having to deal with a little bit of a Ling run by that killed 8 workers. Nice little bit of counter pressure there from Scarlett, which was needed. She's been reeling and been on the defensive for quite some time. But you mentioned that ticking time bomb of the Ultralist Cavern. The upgrades are not looking great for the Zerg player right now, but give the Zerg a few minutes, and that's going to be a serious threat. Does Gumiho have what he needs now to break the Zerg army and stop this from happening?
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest question right now, because the 2-2 is done. This army is insanely powerful. And Gumiho also getting +1 vehicle weapons, because he recognizes that if there's anything trickled in like lings and whatnot, this will help tremendously. This position is beautiful, but it's only one or two fungals and a few biles away from the tanks getting pushed down, so it's very important to stay focused here. Great fungals, gets all the medevacs and the banshees.
Wow. That was a brilliant shot. That not only denied the vast majority of the air power, but it was a huge number of medevacs gone from a bioforce that sorely needed them. What a great defensive move, and she's not done yet. There's plenty more acidic vials ready to go, and without enough medevacs, you're not going to be able to move them out of the way, but the fungal combination means you can't evacuate them anyway, and the Terran army is taking huge losses. Will it be enough? Fungals down on both sides. The Zerg players got it. I think Scarlett should be able to push this back, but maybe, just maybe, that upgrade lead was a little too much, and reinforcements now streaming in from the back, and there's still 3 intact tanks.
Yeah, Gumiho was able to force the fight, but pushing in, there's still all those siege tanks in the back line, really locking it down for Gumiho. This was super important because he actually did take a decent bit of damage from a counterattack early on. Now, the Ultras are coming out, but these are not your Super Saiyan Ultras.
No, they're not.
They do not have all the full upgrades. They can die to the men with guns.
Yeah, and there's several tanks in the mix as well, so yeah, it absolutely can happen. GG, Gumiho pulls it out despite an initial, what looked like a disastrous initial push from Gumiho.
Yeah.
Eating just fungals and acidic bombs and everything you could possibly imagine, losing a lot of his air power immediately before even getting a shot off. The upgrade lead mattered, and he did hit before that critical mass where Ultralisks are almost unkillable.
Yeah, that's such an important window to be able to hit. You know, Terran versus Zerg hinges on a couple of things. I mean, we talk about how in the, you know, a lot of the Terran players that have played today go for the 2 barracks straight into the double medevac, and they make their big push while they get the 3rd in their eBays and whatnot, but a lot of it comes down to doing that early damage. We saw that in this game, but I will say, for everything that happened, it shouldn't have been this close if it weren't for the fact that Scarlett just played so damn well in her recovery game.
Yeah, she took so much damage early on.
Yeah, I mean, she was down to something like 23 drones versus 45 SCVs, and that is pretty much always GG, so just wanted to give a kudos to that. Scarlett should have been dead much earlier, but she really just needed another minute or two to hang in there. If she gets the Ultras out and she gets chitinous plating, this becomes a real game again, and that's, you know, it was a really very well-coordinated assault by Gumiho on that base.
It was. It definitely was. And the timing was super important. You have to realize that. Even with a great defense, the upgrade lead was too good. Getting those tanks out of the way is super important. Even having 3 remain at the back to continue to shell with impunity, that's going to eventually break any Zerg defense. And Ultra's too little too late, unfortunately. Easily focused down by the unsieged tanks. And that, as they say, was that.
Yep. Very good game. Glad to see Gumiho do something really cool like that and be able to make it work in this game, in this awesome tournament. I'm hoping to see some more unorthodox strategies. I mean, as a Terran player myself, I think my favorite thing is to see are when people can kind of do things that are a little bit outside the usual scope of strategy. As much as good as the 2-1-1 opening is, it's pretty overdone. Everyone does it. It's incredibly strong for a reason, and that build is one of the reasons why the win rates are favoring Terran a bit lately.
Yeah, that is true. Gotta say, big congratulations to Scarlett for that performance, though. 3 wins, absolutely phenomenal, walking away with $750. Of course, tying Innovation streak in this event. Of course, he has a 10-win streak total, which is going to be a thing that's very, very difficult to beat, but great performance from Scarlett, looking a lot stronger than last month. Like, she continues to really get better and better. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when she goes back to Korea. She already seems to have got some benefit from her practice over there.
Yeah, really awesome play from her, and I'm always glad because this just means I get to see more Gumiho games. Very interested to see who he's going to be going up against next, if he's going to continue to keep it interesting.
Well, we've got a lot of Korean players ready to rock and roll. It's getting quite late over there, so I'm going to try and crack through as many of them as possible. Plenty of exciting players to come here on ShoutCraft Kings. Just waiting for our player to join. We are having a cursed tournament when it comes to players like, yeah, I'm ready to go, and then they disappear after 5 minutes. Like, where'd you go? Unfortunately, we also had a couple of players bail on us who, promised they would play and then disappeared, which is not brilliant. We've been sort of swapping players out, frantically getting new players to try and fill the gaps. We may actually end up falling in slightly short today, because I think we might be one player short as a result of someone who no-showed, which does suck. The 1 month where I think, yeah, last month we got 2 benchers and everybody showed up on time, so we didn't need them. This month, we got no benchers and then a bunch of people didn't show up, which I guess is typical. Annoying. All right. Well, the next opponent, we're going to see another TVZ. I do love to watch TVZ with Gumiho. But this is going to be against a Korean Zerg player. Someone who had a huge amount of hype quite some time ago. Continues to be a really solid player. Perhaps not achieving the heights that he could have hoped for. Regardless, he's up against Africa's Symbol.
Oh, okay. That's someone I definitely have not been able to see play a lot of games lately. Don't know 100% what to expect out of him, but he was extremely good from what I've heard, and he still plays a good amount. I think this is a cool matchup then. King Sejong Station is a map that is liable to be good for many weird builds. I think especially Legacy of the Void-wise, you could do some weird stuff with Liberators too, so don't know what to expect out of Gumiho. And very interested to see what Symbol is going to bring to the table then against him, as he is not your average Terran player.
No, absolutely not. However, interestingly enough, both Symbol and Gumiho have been following relatively similar paths as of late, playing an awful lot in online events, particularly Olimo League. Symbol has been ravaging Olimo League over the past couple of months, with racking up a huge number of wins. A lot of Terran as well, in particular. A couple of days ago, 2-1 Keen. He went out in a very close fought 2-1 series with Beyond, and he has also defeated players like Natural as well as Reality recently. So he's looking pretty good in this particular matchup, and he's had quite a lot of experience fighting the sort of thing that you would expect to see out of Gumiho in a lot of these online kings, I suppose you can call them. He's fairly adaptable. He hasn't really been playing too much else, honestly. It's pretty much been online cups for him for the last few months. He did have... it wasn't a brilliant performance in SSL, unfortunately. He did 2-0 Cure before losing to Reality and then Cure again. Therein lies the problem. So... that was unfortunate. He did lose in Code A to Patience, and he had a Pro League match quite recently, but lost in a ZVZ to Rogue. So, he's having difficulty re-establishing this form that he had. I think you can remember it from around the sort of Iron Squid era of things, when that tournament was happening. Symbol was hugely hyped up by myself and Apollo, for the most part. Like, we were the big, Symbol cheerleaders for a long time, because he was an incredible player with Banelings. He could do anything with Banelings, regardless of what match it was. He'd always somehow sneak Banelings in, he'd drop them, he'd borrow them. He was brilliant with them, and it was a very exciting thing to watch. Unfortunately, he seems like he's fallen off a little bit lately.
Yeah, interested to see what he can bring to the table in that case for this match. I'm not surprised to see Zerg's having difficulty with the Terran players lately, so a lot of Zerg results have dipped just a little bit because of that. So King Sejong Station, though, actually, now that I go back to it, King Sejong Station has always been a pretty good map for Terran as well. Not surprised to see this pick come out of Gumiho. Yeah,
doesn't really surprise me too much. Let's introduce our players, ladies and gentlemen, on King Sejong Station. To the northwest position in the red trunks, playing Terran, it is Gumiho. Versus his opponent to the southeast position in the pink trunks, playing Zerg. He plays for the team Africa Freaks, which is a terrible name for a team. It is Symbol. It would be a good name if they kind of did a play on words with it, Like, maybe they just spelled Africa differently, but it's like, no, let's just say freak. No, not quite there. Not quite there.
Not yet.
Yeah, could have been worse. We were in a position where StarCraft was about to enter its darkest time, where we could have had Chicken Maru as a team name.
Yeah, that would have been pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that actually would have been the end of StarCraft as we know it, really, you know? Some people have been saying for a long time, dead game, dead game. That would have killed it. That would absolutely would have killed it.
Just throw it in the fryer with the chicken.
It would have been, yeah, been burned to a crisp. Burned to a crisp.
Delicious crisp, brought to you by...
Brought to you by Chicken Maru. It's no. What is the weirdest, like, sponsor team name that you know of, like, that you've heard of? Obviously, I know there's Team YP.
Yeah,
which was, of course, YouPorn, which was not allowed to keep their original name.
I'm not honestly sure if I've heard anything weirder than that one, right? I mean, some teams have like the sponsor in there a little bit, like Team Liquid used to be all the Team Liquid players used to have like the handle for the little app factory or something in all their names. It was like everybody was like TLAF or something. But it was just weird to say, not necessarily weird in general.
Yeah. I mean, there was e.g. HyperX and stuff like that, which that was all good. You know, that made sense. A TSM Snapdragon, which was that was fine. You know.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we don't have MVP Chicken Maru. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Also, like they had the tags on the end too. I think it was like at some point it's like EG to Muslim RC because they had all the raid calls stuck on the end of everything. Yeah,
I'm still at a loss as to how raid call managed to sponsor anything, but never mind. It is what it is. We've seen some odd sponsorship situations in StarCraft, really.
Yeah. So Gumiho's opening up with this reactor Hellion again, and the starport with the tech lab. So maybe he's still gonna get the mines in the medevac and then float off for Banshees again. Worked well last time.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
I can see it doing a lot of work again.
Working on that third base. Shouldn't really be able to get it, but
he's softening it up for the follow-up at the very least. This is something that, like, you players don't think about this sort of thing enough, but it's like, okay, he's not going to kill it, but by the time it finishes, its health is still going to be in, like, the yellow or the red.
Do grenades damage buildings? Because he's using the grenade consistently. Well, that's pretty cool.
An extra 10 damage, yeah. Well, the Hellions, be careful, the Lings come up.
Wow,
great nade hit on those Lings.
Lovely, jubbly, that's what you want to see. Is he getting out of this with all of his Hellions alive? Nope. Nope. One has to die, sacrificial, but you really worked that hatchery over, you know? And that's going to start with less than half of its HP. That makes it a prime, juicy target for later. What we're actually seeing here is a Liberator. No Banshee nonsense here. A real quick Liberator from Gumiho.
I like this a lot. This is what I was talking about. On this map, it's so good. There's the mine drop, by the way. Just 3 drones picked off this time.
Yeah, Symbol not quite as vulnerable to that as Scarlett evidently was.
No, so solid hold there. The Spore will finish in time to take care of these Whittle mines. But yeah, I think Liberators are just really good on this map in general. You have... I mean, it's like the dream of a Terran. You have this extremely exposed.
You know?
The natural.
It's a real nightmare to defend properly against that.
It's still pretty easy to work over the third base and the main. Like, you get between the main and the third, and you just kind of bounce between those two because you have so much airspace. It's very easy to hide behind the main, off into the abyss. So, Liberator utility is just, you can't ignore it on this map, especially, Liberators are just so damn good. If you have an opportunity to use them, you should.
Yep, and Liberator already make his way across the map, actually going to the main. I believe it did pass an Overlord in the process, so we're seeing Ravagers moved into position to deny this Liberator's deployment. And in fact, actually, if Gumiho deploys and then doesn't see that... that's going to die! That's going! Correct. That was a huge mistake there by Gumiho. And a brilliant move by Symbol to hold the Ravagers back and bait his opponent in.
Traded the Liberator for 85 damage on a Ravager. Feels bad, man.
That was an excellent move by Symbol there. Very patient. He managed to scout it coming in, and then he just waited. You know, if he'd put what a lesser player would have done is perhaps put the Ravagers visually there to say, don't come here. The thing is, if he'd done that, the Liberator would have just got away. You know, he actually allowed the Liberator to deploy and then immediately killed it, which was excellent.
Yep, and you know, another thing, of course, to bring up is these Hellions also just got way more utility. Just drop the 3 of them in, take out 5 drones, pick them up, move them out. Easy peasy. Third base being taken by Gumiho now. Worker count-wise, though, Symbol's still in a strong position. It looks like he wants to go for just a big Roach Ravager attack with +1 in speed. Could go for +2, but it won't line up with anything.
No, unfortunately, it will not, and Symbol's just been looking rock solid up to this point, but This third base right here for Gumiho is going to sort of force the issue. Symbol can't really hang around on 3 bases. He's already trying to establish that 4th, but Gumiho knows it's coming and is going to threaten it. But here's the problem. If he draws that army out of position, that softened up third base could be a prime target.
That's true. He can kind of play around with both spots. His bio pushes the front, but at the same time, the Hellions go back into the main base. Get another 2 drones. Medevac saves 2 of the Hellions. So just putting pressure on, trying to get some consistent, stable damage in. But the frontal assault, not being able to do much, is always going to hurt. Yeah, that hatchery is at half of its health. That's an important thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't gone for it yet. You know, it's a good opportunity, I think, and there's very little defense there. It's not like Symbol is baiting him into it. There's nothing sort of hidden around that position. The drop is now coming in with 2 Hellbats, which should do some pretty decent damage to the worker line. And it'll get a couple, not too bad. He could have got a couple more if he'd focused fire there. He didn't quite manage to do that. That Queen's going to be forced backwards. That may, however, remind Gumiho that weak hatchery is there. Big push now coming in towards the 4th base. There's plenty of Roaches and Ravagers to push it back, though.
Symbol is everywhere with these Roaches and Ravagers, not able to find a weak point to get in on this at all. Like, I think Gumiho's, he's had a pretty rough time here trying to get some more. Whoa, 17 drones just picked off.
Yeah, he was able to get into the natural, I believe, and do a bunch of damage there. And also the 3rd is still getting some damage done. I mean, grenade goes off, the entire drone line has been pulled to handle that. And then, of course, we saw a couple of drones go down off the cliff.
I was just looking, I'm like, man, he's done a really good job pushing the army back. And then I see, oh, okay, there it is.
Drones.
Widowmine at the 3rd base getting 5 kills. Okay, so now I'm like, okay, everything was going really well for Symbol, and then 20 drones just died. I'm like, all right.
And you know, weirdly enough, it's still going fine, actually. Still going okay. Symbol's managed to recover for the most part with his workers. His army supply is looking solid. And I'm just looking at Gumiho's army. I'm looking like, does Gumiho have a big enough army to really force the issue? The answer is no, but I still think he can do a hit and run on that 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, all the opportunities are still there. I still will say, like you said, that the army is still extremely threatening. Like, this is the kind of force where you need a few more Marauders mixed in. You need your tanks. But what interests me is that Symbol's actually going into Corruptors. So he's basically saying, I have an army that can beat your ground army. Wow!
Didn't pay attention. Gummy, oh dear. Down he goes.
That's unfortunate. That's pretty rough. So, I mean, now we get to see the attack on the exposed 3rd base.
Yeah, and that should
go down. He's going to focus it down.
Yeah, totally. That's down, and I'm surprised that it didn't happen earlier. I mean, he didn't have to lose an entire Medevac's worth of stuff to do it, but it happened. And now we've got a position where there's, you know, a temporary advantage here for the Terran player with 2/2 upgrades. But I think Symbol, that may trigger a counterattack for Symbol, and Symbol's army is large, and he's been on point with these Ravager shots today.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of work done. The Corruptors are so scary because they can put an end to the madness of trying to make those little plays, those cute plays where you move the tanks forward. I mean, Gumiho's making 3 siege tanks at a time. He is extremely committed to his marine tank. He knows that it's incredibly powerful against us. The only army that's really going to contest this many tanks is it's honestly just going to be Broodlords or Vipers. Like, you need to use that to a pretty insane degree to really get some work done here against this. So, I mean, if he gets the tanks up and he keeps them in good position, that's all fine and well, but that's where the Corruptors come into play. You want to use them to push those Medevacs back and buy yourself a little bit more time in positioning.
Going to get the hell out of there after an entire army of Ravagers bears down on him. The base now being rebuilt at the 3rd. Another split off from Gumiho, trying to find a way in, and he could certainly do damage at that 4th. It's actually relatively exposed right now. And, with the Corruptors there, that drop never even made it. That was shut down quite nicely. I think we're actually going to see a position now where Symbol's able to really push. The Ravager count is very, very high, unusually high.
Yeah, he's got a very weird sort of army because it's like he's done a really good job of stopping all of the direct assaults. Pretty much most of Gumiho's good harass has been off of, outside of sniping the weak base from the early harass, like, it's just been like the mine drops, the Hellbat drops been getting work done, the little cheeky Hellions and whatnot, but the actual army contestation has been very difficult. However, I will say that with this many tanks, like 7 tanks, 10 Marauders, 52 Marines, like, this shouldn't really be something that he can attack into all that easily.
With air control, though, you know, and Ravager shots, I mean, that it could do the job. And a tank is picked off there as demonstrated, but, you know, how many times could he go in and really do that? And Gumiho realizes the threat and is now adding missile turrets to try and ward those Corruptors away here. The addition of slow Banelings is weird. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, and that's not going to get anything done with that many tanks, as you say.
I was about to say, I'm like, well, he built all these Banelings, he doesn't have speed.
Like you've got to drop them, you know? I mean, I'm not sure what he's doing with them at this point. We're actually seeing a transition through to Ultralisk and Crackling upgrades here as well.
Too many tanks to break this, and I love that he's putting. He's also doing a great job of abusing the sensor towers. Like he's just got them everywhere. He's creating the Venn diagram of death. Like you're never getting inside of this base without being seen.
Yeah, it is a weird composition. I feel like the more Symbol shocks around with it, the more likely it is that Gumiho's just going to go and run it over. Of course, there is the risk of corrosive bile and things like that, and there is still air control in favor of the Zerg player. And a lot of corrosive biles coming down and not really getting a lot done, but these Banelings, as I say, they're just dead weight right now in Symbol's army.
I mean, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that this is also an army that kind of goes in a weird direction. Picks off that drop in the main. Corruptors are so annoying. And Gumiho sees. He's like, oh, okay, you've got your Ultralisk Cavern on the way. You've got your chitinous plating being researched. So the Ultras are going to be strong, but I mean, with this many tanks, he's actually got a solid backbone to help deal with this. And at the same time, he's transitioning into Thors. I'm personally not a fan of Thors myself, but he might be building these also concerned, and he should be concerned about the possibility of being hit with something like Broodlords, because there's Corruptors on the map and you've got a Hive.
Uh-oh, here comes the engagement. The Corrosive Biles don't really land, and honestly, the Terran gets the better end of that. Now, the Crackling upgrade is done, but he only has 7 Zerglings, so there's no real point in doing that. 5th base now picked off. I mean, the problem, I think, now for the Zerg player is, like, what base can you take? Because all your options are too damn close to the Terran.
It makes this map difficult for Zerg, because the Terran player can kind of just hit you from all different sides, but with the mobility of the Terran army, from where the Terran has expanded, it's very easy to bounce between the 2 bases in the center and in the top right. Like, it's very easy to move between those, so the Ultras are coming out.
I don't like the fact that
finishing.
Yeah, but it's not done yet. I don't like the fact that he's going in before that. You know, he's going to lose Ultras unnecessarily. Bang, bang. 1, 2 down immediately.
You just hit the nail on the head there. They both died instantly. These Marines come into the left side, pick up a few Ravagers and Lings. Wow, great.
Pickups, actually.
Extremely cost-effective Marine attack here.
Absolutely, yeah. A Symbol's sort of falling into pieces here. Again, Ultralisk, very threatening. But why throw them in before Chitinous is done? You know, he loses a couple. If you don't have a good number of the damn things, you're not going to get much done. In fact, actually, the Zerg army right now is not that threatening. You know, what is the supply in? You actually look at the army supply, it's not great. You know, he's building 4 more Ultras, but, you know, what's his backup? You know, the Ultras will send things running, but where's the cleanup? He doesn't have a lot of Lings on the ground right here. He's actually going in again against a fully sieged established Terran player. That shouldn't work. And it doesn't.
Not gonna work at all. You know what, TB? This army's gonna get absolutely bulldozed by Gumiho. And the most important thing is that +3 Carapace is not done for Symbol. So yes, he has Ultras, yes, he has Chitinous, but he doesn't have +3, and Gumiho has +3. So his Marines are actually doing damage to the Ultras, and now the Ghosts come out with the snipe?
Oh, bang, bang, bang. Down they go again. And, like, the Link count wasn't there either. Like, that... It just seems like, why be aggressive at this point? You know, I get that you're pissed off that the Terran has far too many bases and so on and so forth, but, you know, you're trying to create the ultra-critical mass, and then you throw away a bunch of your Ultralisks as well, so that didn't go well.
It's such a big deal, like, especially considering, like, when +3 finishes, then they're Legacy of the Void Ultras, but they only have 7 armor right now. They're just like from Heart of the Swarm. And then Marines, we know Marines and Marauders were actually still pretty solid against those Ultras from Heart of the Swarm. It's that extra armor that really does it. These Banelings, though, kind of walking straight through. He's looking to get the Ghosts. He wants to deny the Snipes, I suppose, but I mean, these Thors and Ghosts are so powerful.
They're just shredding the Ultralisk. Again, a fight 7 seconds before the completion of +3, and Symbol just falls to pieces. Gumiho is looking really strong. GG! I don't know what happened there for Symbol. You know, we spent the first 10 minutes talking up just how on point he seemed to be with absolutely everything. His Ravager shots were great. He was catching harass. He was playing really strong. And then something went wrong in his brain. I don't know what it is, but he started making weird mistakes, and Gumiho took advantage of them all.
Yeah, it's so stressful. You know, you're dealing with the Terran player trying to put the pressure on you, but it's also that map, to be honest. Like, the Terran can take their fourth in that top center position. You put your tanks on the high ground, and then it's like, well, the only way to really attack the Terran is through there, or you try to break the rocks on the left side. And maybe that would have been a good thing to attempt, but I guess Gumiho just kept putting the pressure on to such an extent that he didn't feel he could reliably throw units to the side to harass, and he could only use his main army. Either way, it didn't work, whatever he thought was the best choice, but I would actually go right back to what you were saying, you know, just burning out all of those Ultralisks before the upgrades were done. Like, should absolutely never have attacked into that center position like he did. Give up the fourth base, expand to the left side, but you've got to wait for the most important upgrades if you're going to try to win the game.
You do, you really do, and it was a bizarre set of errors that led him to that. It, unfortunately, is really the sort of thing that I've come to expect from Symbol as of late. You know, he has those flashes of brilliance. He could have been a great player, but he falls to pieces. Like, when it matters the most, his decision-making goes to hell. I don't know why it is. It's an unfortunate problem that I certainly hope he's able to get over.
Yeah, and I guess interested to see who can take out Gumiho in this position. I do like that, despite, you know, what we saw, that last game was pretty straightforward. He still had his own little twist. I thought the opening was very creative, was very interesting. He got a lot of weird work done. His main army couldn't actually do much harass, but then, like, he got that 4 Widow Mine drop in the natural that I was like, I completely missed, and killed 19 drones in 3 seconds. I was like, okay, well, that's another way to bring yourself back. But even using Thors, like, nobody builds Thors. If your opponent has a maxed army, like, Thors are generally pretty bad, but being able to focus fire them if your opponent's playing Roach Ravager into Ultralisk, like Symbol did, then I think Thors can actually be good because you don't have those swarms of links. Like 8 links around a Thor and you usually lose it, but when you're playing against Roach Ravager, you can actually trade out.
Well, I know what you like, Nathanias. I know what your favorite thing is.
Aaron?
Good old-fashioned TVT. I have someone who might be able to do the job. I love watching Gumiho in TVT. It's always a glorious mess. But what happens if you challenge him with one of the fastest Terran in the world? He is SKT1 Dream.
Nice. So this should be... So I look at this and I'm like, all right, Dream is really good. If anyone should beat Gumiho, I actually, in a normal match, I would favor Dream over him, but I've seen some interesting builds out of Gumiho lately in Terran versus Terran, and it is Frost, so I'm not sure that it will happen here, but the last game I think about is, I'm not sure if it was Pro League. It was a game on New Gettysburg. Gumiho played against Maru and actually Shrek'd Maru with a mech build, so whether he can do that on this map, I personally don't think it's the best for it, but we'll have to see. I expect Dream to just be all over the place, a macro monster, drop, harass, just everything that makes a great Terran great.
Dream's ridiculous. I mean, this is a guy who is 19 years old and has been playing for quite some time. His speed is phenomenal, and of course, he's been a really strong competitor in Pro League as well. But he has to face up against the current king to the southeast position in the Red Trunks playing Terran. It's Gumiho. Versus his opponent, cross position on Frost. Nice big map for a good old-fashioned TBT. To the northwest position in the Blue Trunks playing Terran, SKT1 Dream.
So in this cross spawn, obviously it's going to help a little bit with the early harass. Terran versus Terran these days is still all about build orders. It's an incredibly volatile matchup for multiple reasons, namely being, maybe not at this level, but when you're playing on ladder or you're playing against random people, a lot of the good economic openings are extremely vulnerable to like Gas First, Reaper Hellion Banshee, or Reaper Hellion Liberator, and almost death losses against builds like Proxy 3-Rax Reaper, or just 2-Rax Reaper in general. So you have to be extremely cautious through every step of the game. That's why most Terran players these days do still open up with Gas First. It's actually so insanely greedy. We used to think Reaper expanding was the safer opening, and that, you know, 1-Rax expand without gas was the greedy opening, but like no one does 1-Rax gasless anymore. Reaper expanding is insanely greedy still. You have to go gas first Reaper so that you can afford to get your factory quickly to deal with whatever follow-up your opponent throws your way. Otherwise, you usually die to most chi. So TVT is extremely volatile, and then for the most part, it just goes back to that marine tank drop thing where you got to drop your tanks first and in a better position where you can get a vision advantage over your opponent.
We see these identical builds coming out of both players right now. Dream has been putting on some awesome performances in GSL, SSL, and in Pro League. He's been a reliable Pro League performer. I believe he is now out of both GSL and SSL, but put on some great performances going up to that. Actually beating Ryung and then losing to Ryung in the rematch, unfortunately. That's was a very, very good series of Terran versus Terran. He's very strong in this matchup, but it's like you said, Gumiho can do absolutely anything. He can bust down a mech build and beat the best in the world with it. So I think this is going to be hopefully a match where sparks fly. I do love myself a good TVT, and Dream has not been known to play a slow one.
No, absolutely not. Like this should be fast-paced, action-packed, aggression, manhandling, all sorts of madness. And that being said, having it with cross spawns means that we're also going to see a little bit more of the drawn out, I would say. Pushing down through the center is always going to be difficult unless one player can get some insane damage done early on, but you can't just base your plans around doing a lot of damage, because if it doesn't if that doesn't work, then you usually just lose.
Yeah. Incidentally, I was talking on my ass when I said it was identical builds earlier, because I forgot, oh yeah, Gumiho actually hasn't built a CC. This is one base.
Gas First has so much variety now, but it's not like it's... I can't blame you, though. I mean, they both did go Gas First into Reaper, but Gumiho traded the command center being earlier for having that faster second gas so that he could do the Banshees, whereas Dream just says, okay, well, my starport's a little bit later, I won't have a Banshee, but Vikings build faster, and I can get an engineering bay, so shouldn't be in too much trouble. But if he doesn't get detection, it could still get weird if he has no scans.
So I was about to say, yes, but where is that engineering bay? Because, that cloaking field is about done. A Cyclone is being added into the mix here as well for Gumiho. He just can't resist a little taste of mech every now and again.
I mean, Cyclone, at least one Cyclone at the start of the game is still somewhat standard for players that are concerned about early aggression, because it is just so damn good at catching drops or catching Reapers or a Banshee, Viking, Raven, whatever your opponent wants to harass you with. Cyclones are pretty good against them, so I do expect him to go straight into siege tanks after this. So more than one Cyclone's pretty weird, but the Banshee is starting to get some work done. There's the scan.
He's going to get a good amount of SCVs, and I think, Gumiho realizes that. He also realizes that scan's going to run out before one fight and can kill it, so he's going to be able to move over, and it's forcing a second scan and getting another SCV. Now, I like that. 2 scans and 6 workers for a Cloak Banshee. That's not too bad.
Very good. That is very good for Gumiho in that situation. Also being able to delay the turret, and we have to keep in mind that it does force you to build those turrets, so he has to have that early investment into the detection. So you can say, okay, well, the Banshee, you still have a little bit more utility. You can still push around with the extra Banshees that he has, but Dream's got a lot of Hellions out of the map. Interested to see what he's going to do with them. It looks like Dream is actually going to be the meching player this game, not Gumiho.
Yes, which is an interesting turn of events. That is a very vulnerable mineral line. Dream is going to go in with a big shot and takes out a few more. The trees are on fire. Everything's on fire. There's ducks and birds and random wildlife that's just on fire. And Dream is getting the hell out of there before too much more damage is done. In the meantime,
another Banshee got 6 kills in the natural. The Raven is out, so no more need to use scans, but still, good work done there. And Infernal Pre-Igniter being added into the mix as well is going to be a big boost to the aggressive capabilities here.
That certainly will, yeah. And you don't want to have Marines without combat shield against that. You don't want to have a heavy Hellion count against that. As it stands, Gumiho has started Stim, but there's no sign of combat shield anywhere. So Infernal Pre-Igniter could play a role here, depending on how long Gumiho decides to delay that combat shield.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have that combat shield, and these Blue Flame Hellions will 2-shot your Marines, and especially if you try to stim, like, they will all die instantly. So I actually feel like in this scenario, there's a weird timing that is opening itself up because of that early damage on the natural by Dream. And Gumiho's worker harass might be the only reason why Dream doesn't go for this.
Yeah.
But I actually feel like he could do like a 4GGS big push forward with all these Hellions, with his tanks, his Vikings, and the Raven. And the reason why I think Gumiho recognizes this is because he's actually pushing himself somewhere where he has a little bit more of a forward advantage. He's more vulnerable to harass where his army is now, but now he can cover the ramp better. And he puts these depots here because he's expecting Hellions to try and force their way up, which it does look like Dream is going to try to make that push I was just talking about.
Sure, I mean, why wouldn't you? Your Infernal Pre-Igniter's just kicked into play. You might as well make some use of it before your opponent figures out you have it. And there is no combat shield, so these are going to be extremely effective. Stim is certainly done, but I do love what Gumiho has been done. Let's try again. What Gumiho has been doing there, as you mentioned, with the supply depot, setting up that defensive position, knowing that this is much harder to get. The problem is, like, you want to try and take a third base now with that many Infernal Pre-Igniter Hellions on the map. Well, good luck.
That Banshee, by the way, still back home, being extremely annoying. 4 more kills.
How does he find his way in there? Like, he gets 5 kills, and yet there's detection and missile turrets and everything. How does that even happen? Great play there by Gumiho. That third base, unfortunately, is not going up anytime soon. Dream is not going to allow that to happen.
Now, Dream is just now starting his own third base, so it's not... If Gumiho restarts his, he's not too far behind. Gumiho did get out enough Marines and tanks to defend against this push. It is extremely difficult to just run up with Hellions in the face of those Marines. There is a critical number of them, a critical mass, I would say, that's able to deal with this, but... what is he doing with these medevacs? Gumiho is repositioning his siege tanks.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Away from the opposing attacking army, which is not necessarily wise. It might need to bring those. It looks like he's trying to flank with them, set up some sort of flank. But Dream smells it somehow and is just backing off right now. I think Dream's scan revealed, like, that's way too small an army. Where's the rest of it?
He's kind of, I guess he's forced Gumiho into a bit of a 2-base haul-in. Maybe Gumiho thought that Dream's third base was already done a while ago or something of that sort, because he's not restarted his third base. He's added extra barracks. He's got combat shields. He's got +1 finishing. So nothing here, to me, says that Gumiho is prepared to take this game much longer.
No.
But at the same time, the SCV is still there to build the third base. However, he has extremely limited his own economy by... perhaps overreacting a little bit to the push outside of his base.
Yeah, it's possible, certainly. I mean, this is a gigantic damn map, and it's very hard to keep track of what's going on over the other side. But he's got to go for an attack now, surely. The question is, can he get anything done? I'm looking at the army supplies. They're relatively even. Tank count's pretty much even. The concern I've got is that Dream's air control completely dominates that of Gumiho's. Those medevacs are not going to last long.
He just sent, I think it was an SCV or a Hellion. It actually ran into Gumiho's army. So he knows where Gumiho's forces are. The Hellion at the watchtower sees the army here. So he knows exactly what is happening in this game. And this is extremely important because he has a sensor tower in the south, but no actual fighting units. He's playing a little bit of chicken here. He's like, all right, you want to try to make this push? Go for it. But, you know, the one vulnerable area you'd really like to get to, my third base, that's where I'm going to keep my army because this is what's most important to me right now.
Well, I just wonder what Gumiho's going to do from here. That third base is a good minute or so behind. Dreams is already saturated. He actually did get himself supply blocks, which is unusual for him, certainly. That's going to be cleared up momentarily. But now we're in something of a stalemate. We have relatively even-sized armies, both using relatively similar compositions, but the difference is one's gone Hellbat and Hellion with Blue Flame, the other one's gone Marines.
So in this scenario with +1 finishing, that's going to be a nice little boost. Gumiho looking for the position. He had those forces on the left side. I think those 2 medevacs just got picked off. He's going to move the rest of his army, and he's just going to YOLO this one. The Hellbats are still inside of the medevacs, but they're going to try to get dropped on top of the Marines. Good pullback from Gumiho, but there's still 2 tanks on the left side shelling away at these Marines.
Oh god, and the problem is there's no medevacs left. I mean, Gumiho is able to break through eventually, and he does kill all the tanks. He lost so much in the process, and I'm worried about the continual effectiveness of this army now that the medevac count just went down to 0.
Yep, the lack of sustainability on this army is a huge problem because the way that people play mech in the Korean scene these days, man, you get those medevacs. Not just for dropping Hellbats, but for repositioning your tanks. It makes it so much easier to defend these attacks, and Gumiho's going to try to push in, but there is so much here for Dream.
No way. That's never going to work. There's far too many tanks here for Dream, I think, but Gumiho breaks it, but not without losing his whole army in the process. And it's like, what did he achieve? Well, he did kill 13 workers. And that's
he brought the worker count even. That's what he
yes,
achieved.
I was going to say, it does sting, but you've got to bear in mind that Dream had more anyway. So what he's effectively done by doing what was almost a suicidal charge into his opponent is he's actually evened the game up.
Yeah. Although, as a bio player, you still want to be able to have that big army supply advantage, which does not exist in a serious way. However, as a mech player, you should still never leave your base with your army unless you're doing one of those weird early attacks. You should not try to leave your base with your army until you have 150, 160 plus, I'd say, supply, because otherwise you're just so vulnerable to counterattacks, and your army's so small you might just die to a surround in the middle of the map.
Well, Gumiho's going to try and set himself a fourth base and play this for the long game, and considering the size of the map, you can hardly blame him. I'm a bit worried about that blue flame Hellbat drop that's going right into the mineral line, though, and Gumiho does not respond quickly to that, losing 5, 6 workers and actually getting out of there intact, which is a lovely little move there by Dream. We did talk up Dream's speed before the start of this, and that really might start to test Gumiho's ability to defend. You know, if we see a lot of multitasking, a lot of quick drops here in multiple places from Dream, then that could be a problem. Another one goes in, does a little bit more damage. 7 workers killed total. Dream can afford to throw away a Hellbat here, a Hellbat there to disrupt the mining of his opponent.
And in this position, I like that Gumiho is preempting the air battle that will surely come up in this game. He uses a counter drop to kill the drop outside of his base. But Gumiho actually went for this +1 ship weapons because he's already thinking about Viking on Viking and needing Liberators to help break the tank line. And we kind of saw a little bit of that already from the Innovation game very early on today against Ryung, where the Liberators are extremely important for breaking down tank lines. If you take air superiority and they can't use medevacs to reposition, you got something really nice going on there. And the fact that we already have Cyclones being produced by Dream just says that he's already like, you know what? Maybe I don't have enough anti-air with this force. Maybe a Banshee or 2 or something crazy could really throw me off.
It very well could. Oh, that is a lot of tanks. That's an insane number of tanks. 16 versus 3
What
here
I was
for
saying,
Dream.
man, he's broken that 160 supply mark. Now he can think about doing something with this army.
Man, how do you defeat that many tanks? I mean, you usually get a lot of Marauders, good stim, get a flank in there. But I don't think Dream's going to allow that to happen. I am a bit concerned that Dream maybe doesn't have a huge number of medevacs to move these tanks around. Like, this army is fairly immobile for what it is, but in a good position, this army is going to obliterate practically anything.
Yep.
Gumiho's taken air response. Ah, interesting. Gumiho has taken air control again.
Yep. That +1 that I was talking about earlier, his Vikings are better. They'll win head-to-head. And now, because of that, he can go into Liberators. We have 3 Liberators on the way for Gumiho. He recognizes what leverage his setup gives him. Now, this is where the Cyclones become nice. He's getting Magfield Accelerator, and we can already see Cyclones are tremendous against Vikings if they're allowed to lock on.
Absolutely, and Gumiho does not want to fight into that. That is a line of death. That would be a suicidal charge here for even someone like Gumiho. It's not worth the effort. The addition of Liberators, however, is going to change that game. If he can maintain air control, which currently he does, the Cyclones are sort of preventing him from doing that, especially with the Magfield Accelerator. If he does that and establishes the Liberators, then the tanks will be forced to pull back.
Yep, that's the key. That's the crucial component of this, is getting the Liberators into a position where you can shut them out. But Dream has realized how weird this is. I mean, +2 ship weapons is on the way for Gumiho. His Vikings are better, but Magfield Accelerator Cyclones are insanely strong versus these units. And some Hellbats also sneak their way over to Gumiho's third.
Yeah, can't complain about that. That's a nice little pick-off. 2 Hellbats for a tank. In come the Cyclones that are immediately blown to pieces by the Stim Bio, but a tank goes down here as well, and Dream's got plenty more to back that up. The Tank March of Death continues. It's 1 tank versus 16. A little bit of a difference there, but a Dream Cyclone and Viking count is really high now as well. I'm actually very worried for Gumiho here.
Yeah, now he set himself up with such a nice siege. It's going to be so hard to crack this open. Liberators are going to try to siege.
right into the center of the tank line. A devastating stim there by Gumiho. He focuses all of the tanks down. He gets liberation zones on top of Dream's army as well. And a wild defense there by Gumiho.
That was actually a phenomenal collapse onto that
really
army.
Was.
You know, all of the units that Gumiho lost are extremely cheap and easy to replace. These SCVs are going to die in droves, but he has the opportunity now to basically just, you know, stim to win and try to crack this one open. There's barely anything here to defend. The planetary fortress with tank support will be a bit of a nightmare, though, and he left quite a few tanks back home, so maybe it's not going to be quite that easy for him to finish this one.
No, but he may be able to crack at least a base out of this, gain some map control. I am a bit worried about that economic damage that was done. No doubt those Hellbat drops continue to be effective, but it was interesting just to see Gumiho just dive on top of that tank line and really get right to the heart of it very, very quickly indeed.
Man, what a strange kind of direction this is headed in. Dream's defensive setup is extremely powerful. I'm actually really impressed. He's left a lot. That third base really doesn't look super touchable. It's going to take a big commitment to break that one down. And Dream is already getting in position to defend.
It's almost like it's the third base is a bit of a trap because the sheer amount of units that could collapse on top of it. Here we go. Tanks are not deployed as of yet. Now they come into play, and Gumiho's force will be pushed back a little bit later perhaps than he would have wanted, but the third base remains up, and Gumiho lost a lot and gained very little.
Yep, he's actually playing into the mech player's hands now. I mean, he took all that economic damage that you were talking about. The Hellbat just ripped through his SCVs, and he has not really secured any capital gains here as far as the economy goes. He cannot afford to rebuild his bio army. We talk about it being cheap. It builds fast, but obviously if you're going to throw him away like that, you can still run out of money pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's just surprising how difficult it is to even get on that third. I'm surprised to not just see more just straight up harass, because Dream lost most of his air power, and Dream relies for the most part on his tanks. It seems to me that's a very immobile army that could be worked around. Gumiho continues to, you were mentioning, is playing right into his hands, and you're totally right. You know, he keeps running at very well fortified in place static defenses instead of trying to work around it and harass and or do all that kind of thing. Now finally Gumiho's like, oh, you have a base over the other side of the map. Okay, at least I can work on that, and he can. But I'm not convinced about the harassment here from Gumiho. He's now finally starting to do a little bit of it.
Yeah, if this game was even, trading your bio for a tank would help. But okay, getting this drop into the main, this is nice. Picking off the add-ons will severely delay the production as well, but you just gotta keep in mind what units are more replaceable. And Gumiho is starting to get some more economy now by securing this northeast position. If he could squeeze some Hellions over here, that'd be really big. Oh, there we go. There's the Hellbats. These Marauders are being just super annoying inside the main base of Dream.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're forcing Dream to continue to pick up and go over and over again. Add-ons are going to get taken out potentially here. This is the kind of harass I would have liked to see from Gumiho 5-10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and he's at least getting something done at long last. But Dream's army is still extremely scary, and I will still say that Gumiho is not building an army that can win a head-to-head fight.
No,
a lot of Marines, a lot of Marauders. Sure, it's nice, but getting air superiority, the Liberators are really what help. Lock it down. He's just going to try to stem straight into this. He actually hits with some of the units from the north side.
If he'd been able to collapse on the north, there just wasn't quite enough there. But actually, he does break through. Never mind, I'm just calling everything wrong this game.
You know what? Not all of the siege tanks were sieged up is another very important thing that just happened there as well. 3 or 4 of those siege tanks were not sieged. But also, I didn't realize Gumiho hit him from the north and he hit him from the south at the same time while pushing from the east. He almost got like a complete 360 surround on this army, and as good as siege tanks are, it is one of the hard parts of fighting out in the open field here, like he is right now.
It really is. He's going into the center right now. He's focused down another tank, and these are expensive. You know, these are going to be fairly hard to replace. There's not quite enough bio to kill that, but was it worth it? I mean, Gumiho has he doesn't have much of an army left. I'm a bit concerned. Like, I don't know how many times you keep throwing away that bio army to trade out for tanks. I don't know if he has enough bases or an economy. He's not going to have one after this. The tank's just dropped right on top of one of the main mining bases, and this is going to start to be a problem here for Gumiho. I'm liking this aggressive, almost suicidal charge that he keeps doing, because it keeps costing Dream so much, but
yeah,
how many times could he keep doing it?
It's just like every time that they do this, it's just the fact that Dream he's really locked down his expansions. Like, okay, these Marauders, they deny a bit of mining, sure, but then he brings some forces over, he cleans them up, and he gets back to mining. It's not like he's losing his bases that much, because these orbitals that Gumiho's been flying all over the place, they can't really defend themselves against this harass. So it's been extremely tough. The scan from Gumiho he sees, and now he can start mining on the left side again. He's got Viking harass going towards the northeast. Like, this has just been really on point by Dream.
It has. It really has. We've got the SCVs in the mix here as well here for Gumiho, because it's not like it's got anywhere they can actually mine with them. Now it's finally moving down to a south basis. It's not like there's a shortage of mining bases available on Frost. There's plenty of places it can go. Dream lands his Vikings, which actually kills 6 workers and prevents Gumiho from mining to the northeast here.
Yep, those Vikings do get snapped up, but, you know, you kill the workers, you prevent the mining, you delay the economy, and look at the army supply, 100 to 63. That army of Dreams is monstrous. 17 siege tanks. He has more tanks than Gumiho has Marauders.
He does, which is a ludicrous thing to suggest, but it is true. Another base goes down, and Gumiho kills one as well. These guys are tearing just chunks of meat out of each other at the moment, and for a long time it's been relatively even, but Gumiho is really starting to fall behind in many areas now.
Now this has been a slugfest, to say the least.
Yes.
The size of the map alone has made it extremely difficult for Dream to push across and try to finish his opponent off, whereas, I mean, the harass has been on point. You know, it's big maps like this, the harass usually has a bigger impact than the big fights, and that seems to be the case so far. But Gumiho is still, he is not interested in making any sort of transitions at this point because of how scrappy his economy is. But that's just the thing, TotalBiscuit, there's not much economy left. Dream still has this left side expansion. Gumiho's going to try to break it, but the planetary is there too.
Yeah, that was an odd charge. I mean, he's going to be able to kill a lot of... Oh, dear. Oh, no.
Dude, those SCVs did not need to chase that far.
I mean, he lost Dream just lost 19 workers out of that for no reason, basically.
That was unnecessary.
It was. Let's not see a crazy throw like we did earlier with, like, I'm going to send all my workers over the side of the map. No. That said, it does allow for a... Oh, God, no. Oh, God, why? Rip. Gumiho just lost half his economy because he marched them into a Hellbat tank line. But as it stands, Gumiho gets a flank again from both sides. He tries to get the surround. Does he quite have enough to break it? No, he doesn't. Not this time. It's 110 army supply to 15. This is the end of Gumiho. GG.
Wow.
What a weird game.
Oh, I love TVTs like that, man. That was, that's like chicken soup for the soul right there. Some good mech versus bio, Legacy of the Void style. I mean, if Gumiho had been able to lock his economy down better and keep using the Liberators, this he definitely would have had a better shot, but he was just hemorrhaging his army supply every time he harassed, whereas every time Dream harassed, it was with Hellbats, you know, it was with Hellions, some Medivacs, maybe some Vikings, but he never just ran his tanks out. So the core of his army never really got smaller after the fights, you know, after the harass at least. Whereas if you want to do that harass as a bio player when you have no economy, then your harass is your army.
Oh, man. That game. That was fun. I enjoyed watching that. I'm not sure if I understood it, but I enjoyed watching it.
It was pretty sick, man. It was pretty sick, so, oof.
I enjoyed that.
That's
take a smoke break after that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just sitting here, I'm like, man, just gotta recover from that one. So I wonder then who's gonna come up against him that can actually take him down. He looked so good.
Dream is a damn strong player, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. We're just sort of trying to make our way through most of our Korean players at the moment because they really need to go to bed because it's 3:30 a.m. over there right now because we've been running a little longer due to delays and all sorts of nonsense like that. So I'm actually ready to announce the next player. He's actually ready to rock and roll.